Looking at the curtain which hides the blank screen as you wait for the featured picture to begin, what will this picture do for you? How will it affect you? All these feelings will pulse through you and more, for the picture you will see is about the most fascinating person in the world, yourself. Can you watch the image upon that screen, and can you invent the image upon that screen right now? Will the story have a happy ending? But one realization can comfort you. You can change the story as it unfolds now, this instant, and for your whole lifetime. You can make this a heartwarming story which will enrich the lives of all who know you, rather than a grab mechanical tale, a chronicle of boredom. It all depends on what you do with an image you carry inside you, an image which is your most important tool for good or for ill. It all depends on you and your self-image. The self-image is a product of past experiences, successes, and failures, and the way other people react to you. From these factors and from others, you build up a picture of yourself which you believe is true. If it's a good, healthy, successful self-image, fine. But if it can stand some improvement, you can change it for the better and start getting the kind of yourself such a change will bring. Self-image determines the size and kind of person we become. We can remove our self-imposed limitations by enlarging our self-image. We form a mental picture of ourselves through experience, and we can change that picture the same way through experience. If the actual experience we need is not available to us, we can create that experience synthetically. Or as a good example of this synthetic experience, when a person worries about failure, he finds himself experiencing the same reactions that accompany actual failure, feelings of anxiety. As far as his mind and body are concerned, he has failed. Everything can be used in either of two ways, positively or negatively, constructively or destructively. But most people apparently never realize that positive results, just as real as the negative results of worry, can be achieved by using our imagination constructively instead of anxiety. Thinking about confidence, self-assurance, poise, and the feeling of well-being would replace apprehension. By concentrating on the success he desires, by synthetically experiencing that success, he can expand the self-image. Instead of a person for whom success is normal, use your spare moments to concentrate on your goals and the greatest success you seek. Analyze your past successes and formulate ways your success can be increased in the future. Put more into the positive use of your imagination than you ever put into its negative use, worry. You're merely reversing the same creative process. Now it's working for you instead of against you. All too often, almost unknowingly, we set the necessary limits for ourselves by holding a self-image that's restricted, inadequate for the full realization of our potentialities. Each of us is at this moment the product of all his thoughts and experiences and environment up to this point. Whether or not we choose to direct our own course through life is entirely up to us. The important thing is to know that it can be done. In the late Dr. Maxwell Maltz discovered 4 important steps a person can take on a regular basis to build a healthy new self-image. Number 1, forgive others with no strings attached. Absolutely forgive every person against whom you might hold some kind of grudge. You do this for your own sake, your own peace of mind. We don't hurt others when we hold hatred toward them. If you cannot take this first step, you can forget the rest. You haven't grown up yet. 2, forgive yourself. See yourself with kind eyes. Try to forget completely all the idiotic things you've done, the embarrassments you've suffered, the mistakes you've made in the past. It's not easy to forgive ourselves. We tend to be much tougher on ourselves than we are on others. But the fact is, blame doesn't help. It's a destructive emotion. Number 3, see yourself at your best. As Dr. Waltz put it, we can start the day in frustration or confidence. Take your pick. There are bad days, but it's better to begin the day in a confident mood than in the mood of frustration. And number 4, keep up with yourself. Don't worry about what others are doing or what others have done or have. Keep your pace. Keep up with yourself. Live the life you want to live. Earn what you want to earn in serving others, and do what you want to do. Live your own life, and don't be too concerned about how others are living theirs. Everybody on earth is inferior to everyone else on earth in certain areas and superior in other areas. It would be completely impossible for any one human being to be as good at everything as every other human being. In his shrine book, Psycho-Cybernetics, Dr. Maxwell Maltz wrote, "Inferiority and superiority are reverse sides of the same coin. The cure lies in realizing that the coin itself is spurious. You are not inferior, nor are you superior. You are simply you. You, as a personality, are not in competition with any other personality simply because There's not another person on the face of the earth like you. You are not like any other person. You're not supposed to be like any other person. And no other person is supposed to be like you. A human being is the finest, the noblest, the most godlike creature ever produced on earth. Not to be thankful for such a gift is the worst kind of ignorance, and an inferiority complex is a phantom, a ghost with no real substance. In the light of knowledge, it disappears. Of all the traps and pitfalls in life, self-doubt is the deadliest and the hardest to overcome, for it is a pit designed and dug by our own hands. We simply must get it through our heads that holding a low opinion of ourselves is not a virtue but a vice. Jealousy, for example, which is the scourge of many marriages, is nearly always caused by self-doubt. Dr. Maxwell Maltz's prescription for restoring your self-esteem. Stop carrying around a mental picture of yourself as a defeated, worthless person. Stop dramatizing yourself as an object of pity and injustice. You know, the word esteem literally means to appreciate the worth of. Why do men stand in awe of the stars and the moon, the immensity of the sea, the beauty of a flower or a sunset, and at the same time downgrade themselves? Do not downgrade the product merely because you haven't used it correctly. Don't childishly blame the product for your own errors, like the schoolboy who said, "This typewriter can't spell." But the biggest secret of self-esteem is this: begin to appreciate other people more. Show respect for any human being merely because he's a child of God and therefore a thing of value. Stop and think when you're dealing with people. Practice treating other people as if they had some value, and surprisingly enough, your own self-esteem will go up. I think most people start out with a wonderful self-image, and then they're ground down quite often by their environment and pushed into little rigid cubby holes into which they're forced to work and live. The possibility of there being two human beings alike is so staggering that it probably has never happened, and will never happen except in the case of single-egg twins. I suppose Louis Mumford has written that the great mass of comfortable, well-fed people of our civilization live lives of emotional apathy and mental torpor. When we're enjoined in the Bible to return good for evil, we look upon this as a moral injunction, which it is, but it's also a psychological prescription for our emotional health. Well-adjusted people frankly admire others for their talents and abilities without feeling envious, without even thinking about it. They seem to know that every person is a product of strengths and weaknesses inherited from all of his ancestors. No two of them were alike, but each one has a slightly different strong point with the standard collection of weaknesses. The most intelligent and healthy thing we can do about it is to make the best use of what we do have. And what we have is considerable. The experts say that each of us has deep reservoirs of ability, even genius, that we habitually fail to make use of. We fail to make use of our own private and individual talents. We forget that other people feel inferior too. Since there's no one else on earth just like us, how can we be inferior? We are each of us, one of a kind, defying rigid comparison by any measuring stick. Your thoughts and feelings about yourself and what you can do or not do are the sum total result of a lifetime of experience and conditioning, and usually have little relationship to what is truly possible for you in personal development. There is a principle or a law of becoming that simply says that each person is in a continual process of becoming or evolving and growing in the direction of his or her dominant thoughts. Your body is also in a state of becoming at a normal rate of cell death and replenishment. You have a brand new body every 7 years, but whereas your physical evolution and becoming is affected by the food that you put into your body, your mental evolution and becoming are largely determined by the thoughts that you put into your mind. The law of concentration says that anything you dwell upon grows in your reality. Anything that you think about long enough and hard enough eventually becomes a part of your mental processes, exerting its influence and power on your attitude and your behavior. If you constantly think thoughts of boldness and courage and self-assertion, you become progressively bolder and more courageous and more self-assertive. The more you dwell on the person you would like to be with the qualities that you would like to have, the more you implant those deep into your subconscious mind, where they become part of your ongoing evolution. What you habitually think about eventually becomes a part of your character and your personality. In this sense, you are a self-made man or woman. You aren't where you are and what you are because of the thoughts that you have allowed to preoccupy your mind. Whatever you have dwelled upon over the past months and years, you have become, and you are right now today the result of all those thoughts. Not only have you made yourself into the person you are today, but you are continuing with the job of construction with every thought you think. Since this is an unavoidable fact of life, the smartest thing that you can do is persistently think the thoughts that are consistent with the kind of person you would like to be. However, for most people, thinking the thoughts that they would like to think about to become the person they would like to be is too big a leap. Most people continue to think about and talk about exactly what they don't want to happen, and then they are constantly amazed that exactly what they were hoping to avoid happens to them again and again. One of the most profound discoveries in all of human history is that thought is creative. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, like begets life. Your thoughts become your realities. You do become what you think about most of the time. You cannot harbor one kind of thought and experience a different kind of existence. This law of cause and effect works perfectly everywhere and always for everyone. The development of unshakable self-confidence, therefore, begins with you taking full, complete, systematic, and purposeful control over the contents of your conscious mind. Discipline yourself to think constantly about only the things that you desire and to resolutely keep your mind off of the things that you fear. All of life is from the inside out. It is from the inner to the outer. The law of correspondence, perhaps one of the most important of all the mental laws, says that your outer world will be a reflection of your inner world. What you see on the outside is largely a reflection of what is going on inside of you. This is not only true for you, it is true for everyone around you. Many times we see people who seem to be very nice and pleasant on the outside, but who seem to have continuous problems in their personal and business lives. We wonder, how could these unhappy things happen to such nice people? The unavoidable fact is that with few exceptions, most of what a person experiences in his or her outer life corresponds exactly to something that is going on in their inner life, something which you seldom know, and it cannot be otherwise. True happiness and success come from living your life in harmony with the laws that govern your being, even though these laws are invisible. They are like the law of gravity, which is also invisible but is to be violated only at your own peril. Happy people are those who obey and follow the laws of nature and live their lives consistent with those laws. If you want to enjoy self-confidence on the outside, you must practice complete integrity on the inside. The foundation of self-confidence is for you to live your life consistent with your innermost values and principles while thinking and acting in harmony with your highest aspirations. Men and women with the most rock-solid self-confidence are those who are absolutely clear about what it is they believe to be right and good and worthwhile, and who live their lives consistent with these values. Everything they do or say is an expression of their innermost convictions. Your whole world can fall down around you, but as long as you know that you are doing the right thing, you will have a deep inner sense of calm that will manifest itself in an attitude of confidence and self-assurance in any situation.
You'll have many ups and downs in life, but what is most important is that you remain true to yourself, and then, as Shakespeare said, thou canst not then be false to any man. The starting point of developing high levels of self-confidence and becoming a superior human being is for you to think through and decide upon your values. Superior men and women are those who have taken the time to decide clearly what it is they believe in and in what order, and they have then organized their lives so that everything they do reflects those values. Recently, I addressed about 150 members of the national sales force of a very successful company. This company had started from an idea. It had grown very rapidly in an extremely competitive market, and the company was very profitable. All the people at the meeting were remarkably positive and upbeat, and had a special quality of goodness about them. When I commented on this, the president of the company showed me the value statement that the executives of the company had worked out before they had begun operations. There were 2 pages of values and principles, which were given to everyone in the company when they began. These 2 pages had been subsequently reduced onto plasticized cards that each person could carry in their wallet or purse. The president told me an interesting story. He said that whenever 2 or more people in the company were wrestling with a decision of any kind, even over the telephone, they would pull out their plasticized cards describing the corporate values. They would then review the values together, one by one, and compare the various options available to them with each value. Whatever decision they finally made would always stand the values test without question. In a recent study covering 25 years of business history, the researchers found that the companies that had very clear written values to which everyone in the company ascribed had earned an average of 700% greater profit over the 25 years than other companies in the same industries that did not have written codes of values. As within, so without. Whenever I conduct a strategic planning exercise for a corporation, the executives of the corporation always select integrity as their highest value and most important organizing principle for the entire corporation. In my experience, almost every corporation will select the value of integrity as one of their foremost organizing principles. Now, the word integrity, according to the dictionary, it means perfect, undivided, complete, unified, a single whole without blemish or fault. It's a fine value to choose. This is a good choice. But in reality, integrity is more than a value. It is the one value of mine that assures or guarantees all the other values that you select. The economic and personal results of individuals and corporations with clear values always tend to be far superior to those of companies and individuals whose values are vague or unclear. Your starting point toward higher self-confidence and personal greatness is to, first of all, clarify your values for yourself. It is for you to decide for yourself the values that you believe in. What do you stand for? And even more, what will you not stand for? What values do you espouse that you are willing to sacrifice for? What values would you pay for, or sweat for, or maybe even die for? Do you value your family, your God, your health, your work, or career? Do you value principles such as freedom, liberty, compassion for the less fortunate, or reverence for life? Do you believe in honesty, truth, sincerity, hard work, and success? Whatever your values are, think them through and write them down. A useful exercise is for you to think of the men and women, living and dead, whom you most admire. What qualities or attributes of these people do you consider the most important? If you could be like any one of these people, which of their qualities would you most want to emulate? When you look around you at the people you admire, what qualities of these people do you consider to be the most important? What qualities do you look for in your friends and associates when you are trying to decide whether or not to become deeply involved with them? What do you think are the fundamental qualities or values that underlie business and personal relationships? What are your values? And when you select a value, if it's to be one of your values at all, it becomes invaluable. And either it is a fixed value and you live every part of your life consistent with it, or it is not one of your values. You cannot have a value when it is convenient and put it aside where it is not convenient. You cannot have a little bit of integrity. It must be all or nothing. The act of selecting your values is also the act of clearly stating to yourself and sometimes to others exactly how you will live your life from this moment forward. Once you have selected the value and you have declared it to be one of your unifying principles, you are in effect saying that this is something upon which you will never compromise. And at your level of adherence to the values that you have personally selected is the real measure of your character, your true quality as a human being. Unshakable self-confidence comes from unshakable commitment to your values. When deep down inside yourself, you know that you will never violate your highest principles, you experience a deep sense of personal power that enables you to deal openly and honestly and with complete self-confidence in almost every human situation. Any difficulty in clarifying your values, a very helpful exercise is to take some time to write out your own obituary or eulogy. Imagine that everyone you know and care about is gathered at your funeral to pay their last respects. The minister reads your eulogy to this assembly of people, and in it he describes the person you became over the course of your lifetime. He describes not only what you accomplished and what you contributed to the lives of others, but he reads out the virtues, values, and qualities that you were known for by the people around you. This obituary can become your vision of the kind of person you wish to be and the kind of values that you wish to live by. No one is perfect, and we all have a long way to go in living our lives consistent with our highest values. But the very exercise of writing out your obituary will exert a powerful influence on everything that you do thereafter. Both consciously and unconsciously, you will be drawn toward living and acting more and more like the person you described in that final testament. Once you've decided upon your values, your work is not over. Now you have to organize your values by priority. You have to decide which value is more important and which value is less important. If you wrote out each of your values on small squares of paper and then you had to throw away all the squares but one, which one would you keep? This then becomes your foremost value. the one that takes precedence over all the others, which would be your second most important value, your third, your fourth, and so on. Your order of priority is extremely important in determining the kind of person you are and the kind of life you live. Many people organize their values with number 1 being God, number 2 being their family, number 3 being their health, number 4 being their career, and perhaps number 5 being success. A person with this order of values is saying that when push comes to shove, I will always favor the higher order value over the lower order value. If your family comes before your health or your work, you would always sacrifice your health or your work for the well-being of your family. If your order of values was changed and your work or financial success came before your health, you would be saying that you would sacrifice your health if that was necessary to get ahead in your career. I have known businessmen who put career success ahead of their families in their order of priority. When they had to choose one or the other, they regularly chose their work over spending time with their spouse and children. And as a result, both the marriages and the careers have run into serious trouble. Selecting your values and then putting them in order of importance actually creates a mental and emotional structure that enables you to make better decisions and choices in every area of your life. The principle of integrity or adherence to your values seems to be a law of the universe. Whenever you violate or compromise your integrity for anything, there seems to be a great power or force of retribution that will not allow you to get away with it. Integrity seems to be an absolute requirement for successful human living. A failing in integrity or compromising your values not only seems to bring about a punishment that fits the crime, whether it's in business and politics or personal life, but it seems to create a high level of stress, unhappiness, and inner turmoil in the life of the individual. This need for absolute integrity seems to require that you live in truth with all people and under all circumstances. Living in truth means that you never live a lie. It means that you never compromise your integrity for the sake of a job or money or a relationship. It means that you always do and say what you know to be right and true, no matter what the short-term cost or benefit. Living in truth means that you do not pretend or practice self-delusion. You face life, your relationships, and your circumstances exactly as they are, not as you wish they would be. Living in truth means that you never stay in a situation that makes you unhappy or which you feel for any reason is wrong for you. Living in truth means that you set peace of mind as your highest goal and as your core organizing principle. You select all your other goals to be consistent with it. You'll never compromise your peace of mind or anyone or anything else. You do and say only those things that feel perfectly right for you. You accept your own thoughts and feelings completely, whatever they are, and you systematically change each part of your life that is not giving you peace of mind. Only in this way can you enjoy the high levels of self-confidence that are experienced by the superior individual. Only by insisting that everything you do allows you to live in peace with yourself can you feel really terrific about yourself and get along wonderfully in all your relationships. Living consistent with your values is the key to happiness, harmony, well-being, and high levels of self-confidence. And this brings us to the final point in this chapter. Perhaps the most important point of all, it is that your true values are only expressed in your actions, in what you do. You can tell what you truly believe by observing what you do. In any situation where you have to make a choice, especially when you are under stress and pulled in two directions at once with opposing demands or responsibilities, this is when your true values are revealed. The action that you take in any given situation will tell you which of your values is uppermost or whether you have any values at all. It is not what you say or hope or wish or intend, but only what you do that counts. Your choices of the actions you take tell you unerringly who you really are. In fact, you can tell what your values have been in the past by looking back and observing what you did under stress when you had an important choice to make. Did you listen to the better angels of your nature, or did you compromise for a short-term advantage? A person who says that his or her family comes first and then has to choose between working late and going to a child's school play or sports activity, and who chooses the child's needs over the boss's requirements, is a person who is living consistent with his or her highest values. Everyone has had the experience of walking away from a job or a relationship, even though considerable sacrifice was involved, because it was the right, though painful, thing to do, and you probably remember how great you felt as a result. Whenever you act consistently with a higher value, you always feel terrific about yourself and your self-confidence soars. But whenever you compromise your values for any reason, you feel uncomfortable, inferior, guilty, and your self-confidence plummets. The fact that your true values are only expressed in your actions brings us to a little-known mental principle called the Law of Reversibility. It says that just as thoughts and feelings lead to actions consistent with them, the principle is reversible, and actions consistent with particular values or beliefs actually lead to the thoughts and feelings that would have triggered the actions. What this means is that even if you start off lacking a particular quality, if you deliberately act as if you already have the quality, you will eventually create within yourself the mental quality that corresponds to the action. Dr. William James of Harvard put it this way: action seems to follow feelings, but really, action and feelings go together. And by regulating the action, which is under the more direct control of the will, we can indirectly regulate the feeling, which is not. You can develop within yourself a superb set of values by acting as though you already had those values. You can develop integrity and courage and compassion and confidence by behaving as though you already had these qualities. And the more you act apart, especially when you demonstrate these qualities under stress or when you feel like doing or saying something else, the more rapidly these qualities become a permanent part of your mental makeup. The more you practice good values, the more rapidly you become a truly superior person. The keys to developing the unshakable self-confidence that will make everything else possible for you is self-control, self-mastery, and self-discipline. Self-confidence can come directly by behaving in a self-confident manner, but it comes more often indirectly by doing and saying the things and practicing the behaviors that lead to self-confidence. And the most important self-development behavior is living consistently with your highest values at every opportunity. In weightlifting, muscles are developed by repetitive lifting at heavy weights. The heavier the weight and the greater the resistance, the more blood rushes into the capillaries, and the bigger the muscle becomes. In mental development, there's a principle of resistance as well. In developing mental muscles, especially the mental muscular quality of self-confidence, you can use this principle to accelerate your own development. Whenever you exert self-mastery and discipline yourself to do or say the right thing, especially under stress, you create resistance to your natural tendencies. This resistance generates friction. This is the same kind of friction or heat that, when applied to a crucible containing chemicals, will cause the chemicals to crystallize and take on a new form. When you create mental friction by resisting your natural tendencies and instead doing what you know is right and true and consistent with your highest values, especially in a difficult situation, the mental heat causes your values to crystallize at a higher level and eventually become a permanent part of your character. Qualities are subject to this same formulation. Once you have persisted through great adversity, you're always capable of persisting through lesser difficulties. Once you have acted courageously in a major confrontation, you're always able to act courageously in the face of lesser confrontations. When you behave honestly when there are large amounts at stake, you're always able later on to behave honestly when you're dealing with lesser amounts. The foundation of self-confidence, the basis of boldness and self-assertion, is a deep inner trust based on living a life of perfect integrity and then disciplining yourself to live consistent with your highest values in every situation. Each time you do this, you will feel positive and happy and wonderful about yourself. Your behaviors will further crystallize in your personality and become a more permanent part of the exceptional human being that you are in the process of becoming.